Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Chargers, are you frustrated and stressed out with your professional and personal life? The Charge Podcast will help you get recharged. Yes, it is hard to believe. We are in the second half of 2020. It's been a very interesting first 6 months with the pandemic that hit the world. The key is not to focus on what is out of our control. Instead, focus on the influence we can create in our life. How are you doing with your goals for 2020? Have you been sidetracked with the events of the world? Let's decide right now to make the second half of 2020 the best year yet. This quote from Jim Rohn sums it up best. Motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. Remember, the podcast is named The Charge after my mantra, create habits around real goals every day. Let's get recharged in the podcast to influence a positive culture in our life each day. Are you ready? Chargers, I know you're always looking for opportunities to learn, grow, and develop. That's why you listen to the Charge Podcast. Well, most leaders struggle with communicating the goals of your business to get results. At the Leadership Navigator Academy, we've created a learning and development program that helps leaders hold themselves and their team accountable. When your leaders change behaviors, you see results in increased performance and a more engaged team, which increases profits. If you would like to learn more about the Leadership Navigator Academy, go to thechargepodcast.com and click on the L&A link to get all the information.
Welcome, Chargers. We're glad to have you back again this week. I hope you are making it a great week. My goal each and every week is to bring you great guests with different viewpoints. And this week, we've got another great guest for you, Michele Molitor. Michele is an executive confidence coach and rapid rewire expert and founder and CEO of Nectar Consulting Incorporated. Michele uses brilliant techniques to shift mental blocks and enhance the capacity of leaders, helping them build high-performing teams and exponentially increasing bottom-line results. Michele, it is great to have you on the Charge Podcast. Welcome.
Well, thanks, Gary. I'm delighted to be here with you.
Well, Chargers, I always have the same question, and they know this question because they've listened to a lot of podcasts and they know it's coming up, but I love giving different viewpoints on this. And my mantra is charge, create habits around real goals every day. And I ask every guest, what habit or habits do you think has led to success in your life, Michele?
Gosh, that's a great question. I think the habit of tenacity, of resiliency, and keeping my eye on the goal no matter what, right? Despite setbacks and stumblings and, 14 steps backwards and 10 steps forward. Just really knowing that I can get there and leaning into the people that I can, trust to support me in different ways, whether that's my team or my family or my friends. Looks a lot of different ways, but knowing that if you really put your mind to it, you can absolutely get to where you want to go.
Yeah. And I think that tenacity really makes a difference because otherwise we get the give up. And if we don't have that resiliency, we're not going to move forward. And normally what's going to happen is obstacles are going to come about. We were laughing about offline that the previous podcast recording that I did, I forgot to hit the record button. Oh. And, so that's a real challenge. But the thing is, we're going to laugh about it. I will call the person that was on before and ask for some forgiveness and see if they'll cut again. And I'm sure they will. But things happen in life.
A magical do-over that makes it even better the second time.
Exactly. It'll be even a better conversation. Well, Michele, I love talking about what you're talking about, confidence coach and rapid rewire expert. And I'm kind of curious to see what you have in this area and what you share with your audiences, because I think a lot of things overlap when you become a lifelong learner. And of course, I always have those friends when I come onto the podcast that have some of those challenges too. And of course, the nice thing about being a podcast host is sometimes you get to hear things and it really helps you make a difference in your life. I know that's why our chargers listen to the show. But my first question is, what do you think some of the biggest challenges, and we'll just lay this one with women entrepreneurs, and I'm sure some of it probably fit men also, but which one challenges affect women entrepreneurs regularly that they really face on an ongoing basis?
That's a great question, Gary. I've worked with a lot of women from all over the world in my 20 years of being a coach and rapid transformational therapist. And one of the most foundational things, particularly for women, is the underlying sense of I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not something enough. And that little voice in your head that runs that tape that can very easily tear you down bit by bit by bit by bit, that erodes your confidence and keeps you from really stepping into your full capacity as a leader in whatever shape or form that looks like. That might be leading as a mom, as a community leader, as a business professional, as an executive. It doesn't matter. But in confidence, that confidence that gets erodes, it's a universal challenge. There's a lot of great books that have been written on this. One is called The Confidence Code, and Katty Kay and Claire Shepherdson are the authors, interviewed international leaders at the highest levels about their sense of confidence. And oftentimes they have this imposter syndrome, right? I'm a fraud. Who am I? Why should they listen to me? And all of that underneath that is, well, I'm not enough. I'm not something enough, right? And so that's one of the core issues that I work with so many people on, is really getting at those underlying beliefs that created that, the events that happen in our lives that are held in our subconscious thinking that drive our behaviors every day. And we don't even know that they're there necessarily, because often they're instilled at a very young age. So I go in and do a lot of deep work at a subconscious level to remove all that.
Yeah, and I bet that's very interesting. And one thing I do think, and I thought that may be the case, I think it does apply to men also. They may show on the outside, there's all that confidence that's there. But like you said, that imposter syndrome, I mean, when you really get in a good conversation with someone, and if it's a deep conversation, you can tell most people feel that. Even the people that we see as they've made it and they're successful, then they have their own challenges. It's there. And I'm sure you've seen that in your line of work. So when you talk about it takes down that confidence. I know one of the things you talked about is with a very young age, and I believe in that too, that, they say a lot what we learn from 0 to 10 years old, we carry with us the rest of our life.
Absolutely.
How do you start to kind of take that and unwrap that to really bring back their confidence and that they are good enough?
I love that question, Gary, because that's the heart of what I do every day with my clients. And so I've been an executive coach now for almost 20 years. And in my seeking of how, as a lifelong learner to be the best version of me, I discovered the work of Marissa Peer, who's a world-renowned therapist. And she's pioneered this methodology called rapid transformational therapy, which is a really unique combination that brings different modalities together: cognitive behavioral therapy, neuro-linguistic programming, and hypnosis all together. And the work that I did with her was so profoundly transformative for me personally. I went on to become trained and certified and have done an immense amount of work with her and her whole team, actually. And I've incorporated it into my work, which I now call rapid rewiring. So over a course of 30 days, just 30 days, I'm able to work with a client and have a deeper level conversation with them, using the modality of hypnosis, right? To have them relax so that I can have a conversation with their subconscious thinking and get at those root events, and sometimes they're very simple, right? My teacher said something mean to me when I was in 3rd grade, or my parents did this, or my sibling did that. Sometimes it's very simple. Sometimes it's horrific. I've dealt with people with all kinds of different life traumas, but all of those events, when we're children, we're just big sponges, and those beliefs, whether they're handed to us, right? You're bad and wrong, Gary, right? Or my mom didn't do this, so I must be bad and wrong. And we make these decisions about ourselves. So all of that is stored in your subconscious. And so through this process, I'm able to help clients, identify the core event or events that created those beliefs. And then we literally rewrite them at a subconscious level, and then instill new empowering beliefs and thoughts with a customized recording that I make for each of my clients. And they listen to it every day for 21 to 30 days, because that literally rewires their neural pathways. It builds new neural pathways in their brain that takes them from, well, I'm not good enough, who am I, to, well, of course I'm enough. I've always been enough. Why did I ever think I was not enough, right? And that shift, which sounds very simple, but is profound, can have these huge ripple effects in people's lives, because then they suddenly see themselves in a whole different light, and they're able to then go, oh, well, of course I'm going to ask for that raise, or of course I'm going to go after that new position, or of course I'm going to start my own business. Why wouldn't I, right? So it's really profound work, and it's an absolute joy for me to do every day.
Yeah, I bet so. And some of the really transformations that you've seen, I'm sure has been wonderful over the 20 years that you've done it. And one of the things I want to really stress to you, sometimes, like you said, it can be something small. Sometimes it's a lot deeper for people, but it doesn't matter. Even if it's that small thing, it's holding them back. And we don't realize as individuals, we hold ourselves so much back, so much from them self-limiting beliefs. And when we're able to change that, it changes that. I know one early in my career I had is when I started making more money than my mother and father-in-law my mother and father, when I made more money than they made in a year, and I was taking that home myself, I had a little bit of a challenge. And it was like, I do have it really good, but that was not where I wanted to end up. And I had a coach at that time, and he had me do a unique exercise where we wrote out on a W-2 form what I was going to make that year. And I said, I will earn this amount of money. And I wrote that number down, and he made me put it in my billfold. And I carried it that year.
Nice.
And I'll be honest, I may have pulled it out once or twice throughout the year, but at the end of the year, I did pull that out. And I don't know if I made it exactly, but I made more money than I'd made those previous years, because it was rewiring some of those mental triggers that's there. Share with us, I know you can't give client names and not looking for that, but maybe share with us an example of what you're talking about to help people really kind of understand when we're talking about trying to create that rapid rewire.
Sure, absolutely. And I can share stories all day long. And some of my clients will be the first ones to raise their hand and share their stories as well. A great example, a client that I worked with, she's a high-powered executive, senior vice president in a technology firm, and beautiful, has everything, all the trappings that life could afford, right? And yet she had an eating disorder, right? A very hidden eating disorder. And she would binge eat, and she came to me angry and in tears. She's like, I've tried everything and nothing has worked. And why should this work? I'm like, well, you can try it, and, we'll see. But I knew in my heart of hearts that I would be able to assist her. And she was very reticent. She's like, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars. I've traveled all over the country. I've gone to retreats. I've worked with coaches and this and that and the other, and nothing has worked. Nothing has stuck. And we worked together for 30 days. And we got at the core wounds that happened to her as a teenager, right? The beliefs that she created about herself and her body image as a teenager. And she was able to shift that and to change it. And I have a handwritten note here on my wall to remind me that she sent me. And it says, the mind is everything, what you think you become. And inside of it, let me just get up here. She says, I saw this and immediately thought of you. Though our time together was short, I'm eternally grateful for what you have taught me. Thank you. And she, wrote me shortly thereafter. She's like, I'm down a dress size. I'm no longer having these cravings and I'm no longer binging. And it truly transformed her life, right? And that's just one example. I've had other clients who have had significant health issues like severe adrenal fatigue, arthritis, psoriasis, inflammatory bowel syndrome, chronic migraines that they've been dealing with for 10, 20, 30 years. And then they've been able to eliminate or significantly reduce the challenges of that because they were able to change their mindset, which was impacting how their body was responding and creating these manifestations in a physical form.
Well, I'm sure over the last 20 years, you've seen a big change because what we're learning about not only the brain, but the mind today is amazing. And, a lot of that is everything. It's new things are coming out each and every day. But over the last 5 years, I've read several books on it. The changes, we realize that we have so much more power in ourselves and in our mind and capability than we ever think is possible.
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm secretly a science geek, Gary, and I enjoy reading books about neuroscience and neuroplasticity in my spare time. But yeah, our brains are an amazing place. There's so much research now that shows us, even for folks who have had strokes where part of their brains have died because of these strokes and these blood clots, the other areas of the brain literally grow and expand and take over for those other parts, helping them to regain mobility in parts of their body that they had lost mobility. It's mind-blowing. I'm actually working with right now a woman who's suffered several mini strokes and has some reduced mobility on her left side. And after our first session, she was able to she has mobility in her left arm, but it's limited. And she said, and I can't raise my arm above my shoulder. And I recorded it so I could show it to her husband. She got her arm all the way up to here, way above her head for the first time. And I was like, did it hurt? She's like, no. So it's amazing what we can do when we just take back the power of our brain from our fears. There's a part of our brain called the amygdala, Gary. It's your fight or flight or freeze mechanism.
Yeah. I
like to call it Amy. Amy's your amygdala, and Amy's the little lizard lady who lives in your head. She's part of your limbic brain, which is the part of your back part of your brain. And Amy just wants to keep you safe and alive and on the planet. And if Amy thinks something is going to be, might kill you, in Amy's mind, she's very dramatic, that Amy, then she will prevent you from doing it, whether that's asking for that promotion or raise or really charging ahead to meet your goals, right? And so when you can learn how to tame Amy, to take back the power from your amygdala and choose how you want to respond versus react in challenging times, it's extremely empowering and enables you to achieve things that you never thought possible.
Yeah. And what of amazing, the capability allows it. Now, I'm sure the transformations you've seen or something else. Now, let's talk a little bit about the mythology. We've talked a little bit about that because it's a little bit unique because it's combining several different things. But you've talked about sometimes how it can be done in weeks. Sometimes after one session, you can see changes already in the person. I'm sure some people it takes longer than that. But how do they eliminate really that emotional and physical blocks to really gain that success that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the process that I take folks through, essentially I'm helping them drift into a very relaxed state of being. It's called an alpha brainwave state, where you're that half awake, half asleep place, like when you're just waking up, right? Or just about to fall asleep. And in that state, your subconscious mind is very accessible, right? It's like the gateway to your subconscious mind. And I'm literally able to talk with my clients while they're in this relaxed state, and have them bubble up to the surface any events that were at the root of the beliefs that they've created about themselves, and the beliefs that have then led to the physical manifestations in their bodies, right? And so once we identify those, then we're literally able to rewrite the story, like rewrite the script, because in a state of hypnosis, your mind doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So you're reimagining the events in a way that feels better, so that you actually are eliminating the emotional charge that you've been holding in your body for however many years you've been carrying it, a year, 5 years, a whole lifetime, right? And as you eliminate that emotional charge, that's a big step. But then the next step is then to rewrite it, right? And build new neural pathways. So the customized transformation recording that I create for clients that they listen to every day as they're going to sleep, right? Because that's when you're dropping through that alpha brainwave state naturally. All of that new information, of course I'm enough. I've always been enough. And it's more than just positive statements. It's a particular way and cadence that I'm speaking their truth to them. I mix some binaural music, which helps relax them even further and just allows them to absorb all of that new information like a sponge. And that process, that repetition, because your brain likes repetition, literally builds those new neural pathways. And so then eventually, or sometimes it happens like that, literally. I had one client who had severe adrenal fatigue write me 24 hours after our very first session. And he's like, best 24 hours ever, right? Like, you changed my life. And, we worked together for about 90 days, and he'll tell you his amazing story as well. But it's the shifting of that and eliminating the emotional charge around those old beliefs that then allows you to see and recognize and take in a new and different reality that serves you and then helps move you forward really powerfully.
Yeah, so fascinating. I'm going to ask this question because somebody in the audience is thinking it, and I believe in hypnosis and understand people can get there. But as you know, there's some people who believe all that hypnosis stuff, that's fake. That's, people don't really get there. And what would you say to that individual? Because that's a self-limiting belief, but what would you say to that individual?
Sure, absolutely. And I get asked that question a lot. Well, what if I can't be hypnotized? I had one client who said, no one's ever been able to hypnotize me. I'm like, okay, right. So just listen to my voice, and we're gonna have a little conversation, and we'll go wherever we go, right? And he was out cold. Like I was like, and because I do all my work over Zoom like this, Gary, and I'm like, okay, you could come back. It was quite funny, but the truth is that there's different levels of, quote, hypnosis, right? When you're driving to and from work every day, it's a repetitive pattern. And so you're driving, you're thinking about the laundry, you're thinking about going to the grocery store. You're not really paying attention to putting your foot on the gas or the brake or steering. It's just automatically. That's actually a form of hypnosis, because there's a part of your brain that's already taken over automatically for you. So essentially, whether you go deep into a very relaxed state or you're in a lighter state, everything that I'm saying is all getting in. And those who have greater resistance to allowing themselves fall into that relaxed state, I have other tools to help me get them there.
Okay, Great. Well, I just know that some people, when you say hypnosis, they kind of tune out, and I didn't want them to, because I'm a believer in that. And I know there's a state in the same way as what meditation does by stopping your thoughts, trying to stop the thoughts, giving time for your subconscious to come through. And most people don't realize is the majority of our, what we bring forward in life is at 0 to 10 years old. And the more we read about the brain and know about the brain and the mind and how powerful it is, we can rewrite those scripts that you're talking about. And just love the work that you're doing. Share with us again, Michele. I know you've got multiple stories, but share a story with us too of someone that's had that transformation, because I think that helps people relate. Okay, well, they are like me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a client. His name's Chris Michael Harris. He's an amazing young man, entrepreneur, built a multi-million-dollar company by the time he was 27, probably similar to your story and your successes. And his need to crush it. He always used to say that, I'm going to crush it, right? This intense drive to succeed was all fueled by the things that he had learned as a kid. And his intense drive almost killed him. He got severe adrenal fatigue. His gut biome was severely compromised. His company, he couldn't work, and his company fell apart. So in a short span, everything collapsed on him. And we met. I actually interviewed on his podcast a few years ago, and he ended up hiring me, and we did about 90 days worth of work together. And at the root cause of his adrenal fatigue, his intense drive, was the decisions he had made about himself because of the abuse he had suffered as a child. His father was very abusive to him, physically and verbally. And he felt, well, I have to do it all by myself, right? I don't have anybody to support me in the world. My mom's not backing me up. I'm just going to have to do this by myself. And so it's created a very strong character within him, but he realized through our work together that he was approaching it from an unhealthy driver versus a healthy driver. So we were able to transform all that. And Chris is one of those people who's very meticulous, and he measures everything. He was been very strict about his diet and all that to regain his health, because he was very much of an athlete before all that happened. And so he happened to have blood work done before our 90 days and blood work done after our 90 days. And his medical doctor reviewing his blood work was like, wow, your health has improved by like 50% in 90 days. And that spoke volumes to me and to him. And we've continued to, have conversations back and forth. He was just on my podcast that I have for my members. And, he's like, I feel the best I've ever felt in my entire life. So there are ways to improve your health and your well-being, and it's just a matter of doing the deeper dive work to get at those underlying beliefs that create the drivers, that create the blocks. And when you choose to do that, then the sky is the limit.
Yeah, and then you don't have to be the victim. You can be the victor.
Absolutely.
And really moving forward, and that capability is there, and you can have that transformation. And one thing I would share is, Michele, why don't you share with them how they could reach out to you if they're interested? Because I think now's a great time, and we'll have it in show notes and we'll come back to it later. But I think, they're saying, I'm kind of interested, like what I'm hearing, and they have that block themselves. How would they reach out and connect with you?
Sure. Well, you can, first of all, find me on my website, Nectar, Nectar, consulting.com. And you're welcome to connect with me there. If you'd like to have a one-on-one conversation, you can book a complimentary discovery call with me. We'll spend 30 minutes over the phone, and you can tell me a little bit more about what's not working for you and what you'd like to change. I do work one-on-one with folks. I also have my Rapid Rewire membership program, which is a group format as well that has a ton of resources that I have for folks. But you can also connect with me and, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. You can find me under Michele Molitor or Rapid Rewire. And I've got a ton of resources out there that I love to share with folks.
Well, I truly appreciate you sharing with our chargers, because I know someone that's listening, they've got that block and they've been really stuck in where to move forward. And I think the thing is realizing there is opportunities out there and there's ways you can change. You don't have to live like that, and you can make that change. Yes, you can read a lot of books and you get a lot of information and you can decide to do it that way, or you can really work with an expert. And that's why I brought Michele on, is to give that opportunity to let you know about it, chargers, because I know someone out there is needing that today. Michele, as we move forward, I want to share the recharge round. As I told you before we came on live, is I ask every guest the same 6 questions. And the one we've talked about some already, but we'll put it in the life for you, is how does your mindset affect your daily living?
Well, Gary, I have a little coach in my head. And so, we all have our bad days. And the coach in me, the one in me that is a coach, will say, well, do you want to sit in your puddle of muddle, or do you want to get up and move on? And sometimes I just want to, arms crossed, I just want to sit in my puddle of muddle for a hot minute, but then I get up and I change my perspective and I get on with things. But yeah, my office overlooks my garden, and I always have these hummingbirds that come to my window. And so it just is always giving me that fresh perspective of the beauty and the miracles in the world that can always bring me back to center and like, okay, right, this too shall pass, whatever the hurdle is, right?
Yeah. And that key of really, you have a choice. You can make that choice of what do you want it to be. Because instead of poor me, okay, give myself a little bit of time and then let's move forward. Looking at the hummingbirds or whatever it is for each person. How about for energy? What do you do daily to kind of bring that energy into your life? So many people think when they think I talk about energy, they think I'm talking about exercise. But I'm talking about how do we bring that energy and vibrance to our life and to our work?
Sure. Well, for me, I think fundamentally it boils down to, Gary, is being able to do what you love and love what you do, right? So finding the alignment between your core values and the work that you're doing in the world, and making sure that they are aligned versus that crosshairs with each other. And when you can do that, then the energy naturally flows because it pulls you forward. The joy that I get from my work with clients is just, that's a natural driver to have me get out of bed and, get at my desk and do the work that I'm here to do in the world.
Excellent. How about the number one connection or relationship that's made the biggest impact on your life?
Gosh, that's an interesting question. I would say my connection with spirit, right? That divine guidance that I get in my work. But also my family and friends that really cheer me on in my work and just give me that, I don't know, that extra oomph of
charge, we'd like to call it. Give you that extra
too. That little whoop.
What advice has influenced you the most in your life?
The thought that just pops into my head is my father's voice. And, at different points in my life, I would be at odds with him about something, and he would just pause, and then he'd say, well, here's my advice, but you do what you think is right. Right. And so it's listening to our own internal divine guidance, right? To know what is right for ourselves, that despite all of the data that we can collect from outside sources, ultimately it has to come down to what is our heart telling us to do. When you get really quiet, you can hear that internal guidance system pointing you versus the head noise, the worry, the fear, the Amy going on and, chattering in your ear.
Yep. When we give ourselves that time and that space to be able to discover it, I think that becomes the real key.
Yes.
Share a book and tell us why you love it.
Oh gosh, Gary, if you could see all the books in my room. The one that I just finished reading, actually, that had a profound effect on me is called Perfect Love, Imperfect Relationships. And it really it's a short read, but it gets really at the heart of how do we get past our grievances about that we carry around for others that keeps us from feeling love, from receiving love. Because ultimately, the very core of everything that we do in the world, Gary, is about being a space of love, to give our gifts, our talents, our expertise in a way of being of contribution to the world. And when we're not allowing ourselves to receive love, then we're blocking our gifts as well. And so it was truly a blessing for me to find that book just when I did.
The one thing I love about when I ask readers that question, most of the time they will go to the last book because, of course, we love books. So we read so many, it's like none of them really are our favorite. They're all our favorites.
Yeah, I literally have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of my little book friends all around.
I understand. I understand totally. Share with us. You've kind of made it through the recharge round, but my last question is, one sentence or less, what legacy do you want to leave the world?
That's always a good question. Change your thoughts, change your mind, change your life.
You are so true there. And I think what you helped us to do is think about different thoughts to help us really change our mind and to be able to change our life today. So Michele, I can't thank you enough for saying yes to be on the Charge podcast.
Well, thank you, Gary. It's been my delight and pleasure to be here with you and all your listeners.
Well, wonderful. Share with them again if they want to reach out to you and they're interested. We'll have it all in show notes for them. But I always love people to be able to share how they can reach out to you and connect with you on your website or with you in person.
Sure. Again, you can find me at nectarconsulting.com, Nectar consulting.com. You can find me on Facebook, Michele Molitor. My Rewire for Success group and Facebook is a fun community that you're all welcome to come and join. And Instagram, LinkedIn, all the fun usual places as well. But I'd be happy to have a complimentary discovery session with anyone who's interested or curious to learn more.
So please check out our website. Check out Michele's got some great information. If you've been struggling with something for a long time and you really don't know how to move forward, I would totally tell you, check out Michele's work because she's doing some great things. I looked at her website and is making some transformation and making better lives for others. Michele, again, thank you for being on the Charge podcast.
Thank you, Gary. It's been my sincere pleasure. You have a blessed day.
Wonderful. Chargers, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I hope we've got you thinking for your mind. What changes do you need to give? Maybe give yourself some of that time and space and really decide what's an action item that you can walk away with from today's conversation that you need to really change for yourself. Are you letting something hold you back that really shouldn't be holding you back? Well, really, that becomes ourself. We become our own worst enemy at times. And how can we make those changes? So I hope you do that. And also, I hope you share our podcast with others because there's somebody else that you know that needs to listen to the Charge podcast. So please like it and share it and let others know about our Charge podcast. And remember, in notes, we will have all the information that Michele shared with us at chargepodcast.com. I look forward to seeing you next week. Come on back and we'll have another great guest for you. Make it a great day. Thanks for joining us.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.